CTV News political commentator, Scott Reid. Scott, thank you so much for being with us. You were with me on the night that we received news of the resignation of the now former Governor General. Your thoughts on this report, sir?
Well, I mean, it needs to be said from the outset, of course, this is a report that provides no findings of fact. So if you're a lawyer, you can't take this to court. This is not something that people can be prosecuted on, but it sure paints a damning portrait. I've worked in issues management. I've worked in crisis management. You bring in third parties, you ask them to interview people. Here's what you don't often get: 92 people who respond, 92 current and former staff who say, this environment made me uncomfortable. This environment was littered with examples of harassment. This environment was toxic. This environment was not appropriate. And complaints were made and processes were engaged, and people still did not feel, who worked there, that they had recourse to be heard. So it's a very damning portrait, and it tells you why the Prime Minister felt that once he was in receipt of it, he had to walk across the street and say to the Governor General, for the first time in Canadian history, you should submit your resignation.
Absolutely. And to your point, no findings of fact in this report that we are discussing in quite big detail. I want to, again, take you back to that night when we did receive that resignation. It was last Thursday, I believe, when Julie Payette had formally resigned. And that statement read in part, tensions have arisen at Rideau Hall over the past few months. And for that, I am sorry. While no formal complaints or official grievances were made during my tenure, which would have immediately triggered a detailed investigation as prescribed by law and the collective agreements in place, I still take these allegations very seriously. We all experience things differently, but we should always strive to do better and be attentive to one another's perceptions. As we bring in Evan Solomon of CTV's Power Play. Evan, that statement stood out for you too, that resignation statement, and most particularly some sentences in there, right?
Yeah, this was before we'd heard from the Governor General, or from the Quintet report. The Governor General said she's sorry. She says she takes it seriously, but this was a remarkable resignation. She did say that, people experience things differently, which was clearly a reference to something the Prime Minister said when he was accused of harassment allegations from about 30 years ago. Her use of that was a clear message to the Prime Minister: oh, it was good enough for you, and now you're basically asking me to resign over this. This, and Scott can weigh in on this, it was a remarkable use of that. No one missed that, and it can only suggest a kind of resistance to this humiliating resignation. But the report today, the final report that we've got our hands on, the words in it will resonate. I mean, her time as the Governor General will be forever associated. And again, these are all allegations, and I appreciate that, but they will be used: toxic, poisoned. I mean, the words just are screaming off: public humiliation, demeaning comments, yelling, screaming, aggressive comments, people who did not feel they had any way to complain, mass departures due to morale. This is a remarkable portrait. And again, though the report does not make findings of fact or determine whether the conduct actually took place, Scott said it right. 92 people decided to participate in this. They said this stuff happened throughout the entire tenure of the Governor General. The fact that the Principal Secretary was the Governor General's best friend, did that or close friend rather, did that contribute to the fact that the staff did not feel that they had a place to formally complain? And so, reading through this report, as we all have now, we've never seen inside Rideau Hall like this. We have to understand, this is the first time any report like this has ever existed. That is unprecedented. The fact that the Governor General resigned is unprecedented. So suddenly, the curtains inside the beautiful Rideau Hall are opened, and what's been witnessed is a disastrous, toxic work environment that belies the calm, noble, and often absolutely wonderful exterior that Canadians expect from this office.
Okay, so the Band-Aid's been ripped off now. Everyone's getting a very good opportunity now, despite the redactions in that big, extensive report, to see what the situation looked like. And by all accounts, it looks like it was a dire situation. Again, none of these allegations proven in court. We have to be very clear on that. Scott, it begs the question, though, moving forward, Julie Payette's big pension that she is poised to get now. There's going to be a lot of questions about whether she deserves that, given the fact that all of this has now surfaced. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there will be few Canadians who will conclude that if these allegations, and man, oh man, this thing is just dripping in lawyers. There's a reason we say every 7 seconds, these are allegations, they're not proven facts. But if they come to be we come to a place where there are conclusions and not just allegations, I mean, I don't think too many Canadians will be saying, yeah, she deserves that pension. So that is at stake here. So that's one of the number of things that are at stake here. I also think in the statement that you cited from last week, I thought there was a hint of the former Governor General, Julie Payette, turning on her own secretary and trying to imply that perhaps the problems were rooted in her management of the office, notwithstanding the fact that, she insisted to the government that her associate be put in that position in an unprecedented decision. So and where that takes me is, I think we're going to see lawsuits. I think we're going to see lawsuits flying around. And so while we're emphasizing tonight that this report strictly provides allegations and not conclusions and not findings of fact, I think we're going to get this stuff prosecuted in courts, and at least in civil courts. And as a consequence, there will be discovery, there'll be cross-examination, there will be scraps. And I think there's going to be a hell of a political pushback saying, you know what? Unless these things are disproven, she doesn't deserve that pension.
Well,
Eyes
can I just
on
weigh in
Ottawa.
on that?
Go ahead.
We can't take that. The pension is done. It is a matter of law. Yeah. So let's just distinguish. Julie Payette will get the pension. She will get an index pension.
Yes.
There is no legal or any mechanism at all that will allow the government to meddle with that. It is written in as a matter of law that the Governor General, no matter how long they serve, if you died beforehand or if you resign, she will get that pension. It's an index pension for life. She only served 3 years. That may be difficult to swallow for some people, but she gets it. What Scott and you're talking about, Governor Generals get a series of travel perks and other expenses paid for after they leave. That can be over $100,000 or more every year. Those are at the discretion of the government, and the government can, and I think, and sources have told me they are looking into it, they can take those away.